Hey everybody, welcome to Nutrition Simplified. Let's talk about eggs, conventional eggs. These eggs, you guys, are pretty disturbing. It's pretty gross. Okay, these hens are in cages where they pee, where they poop, they're confined, and they're laying eggs for you and your family to eat. That's pretty much it, okay? Now, I grew up on conventional eggs, so I'm not shaming anybody out there that has bought this before, but I want you really to see the big picture here that these hens are not getting any outdoor space. They are not eating grass, not eating bugs, not eating worms like we talked about in the other video. Probably being given synthetic methionine to try to make the eggs look more nutrient efficient, even though you're just eating synthetic nutrients anyway. and it's very inhuman. It's ugly. It's ugly to say the least. So not good environments, and they're profiting off of people with inflation with this type of quality, and it's not right. So if you're buying conventional eggs, I really encourage you stop. They're only being fed grains, and those grains are GMO grains. They're not even organic or non-GMO, for goodness sake. So this is probably the worst of the worst that you could be buying for your family, okay? Next, let's talk about cage-free. Alrighty, now the difference here isn't much bigger. It just simply means that they're not in those cages that we just saw. Everything still applies. They're eating grains that are GMO. They're not getting access to bugs, worms, the bugs that are needed to get that natural methionine so they can have nutrient dense eggs. That's the only difference here, you guys, is that they're not in cages, but they're in very crowded, very gross environments, okay, where they're pooping, peeing, and laying eggs together. Alrighty, let's talk about free range. I hope you like my little pictures here. All right, so free range does mean that they're allowed a certain amount of square feet to roam. They're not pasture raised now where they have a whole pasture, but they can actually roam in some grass. I don't know how much that is exactly. You'd have to look it up online and research that, but they are given some space to roam, but it's not nearly what a hen should have, okay? But the same applies. If it says free range, you don't have the label organic on it, you're getting eggs that have pesticides, herbicides, and fertilizers that have been used in that grass. They're consuming that. Yeah, they're still eating, the limited grass that they have out there, but they're mainly being fed grains, okay? Whether it's a GMO grain or a non-GMO grain, you have to look at your carton. If it says free range eggs, non-GMO on the side, or if it doesn't have that, then clearly they're being fed a GMO grain. So there's the hope that, yeah, maybe they're getting some bugs and worms, but if they're really, stuffed in that free range space together, which is not much because they're not on a pasture, they're on very limited ground, they may not be the first bird to be, getting all those nutrient bugs and worms in their diet if another bird got to it first. Does that make sense? So that's free range for you there. Not the worst of the worst, but also not the best. Now, what you want to be looking for are pasture-raised eggs, or even better, pasture-raised organic eggs. I talked about that in a previous video. So if you're interested in that, go over there. You can see my title, Pasture-Raised versus Organic Pasture-Raised.